10-month-old snatched from her own crib.
Our 2 other boys are waiting for her, please. Just drop her off anywhere.
A FBI cadaver dog made a positive hit for the scent of a dead body inside the bedroom of baby Lisa's mother.
A hit means the dog got the scent of a deceased human.
Is it true that you're getting paid to avoid local reporters?
Not at all.
Then why won't you talk to us?
Because we're grieving.
No mother who's looking for their child uses the word grieving unless they know their child is dead. And that is very striking to me.
Surveillance camera footage from a nearby grocery store that shows Deborah Bradley walking in with a friend.
They had a box of wine, some baby wipes.
At one point, Deborah Bradley was walking out of the store smiling.
She admits that she was drinking, that she had a lot to drink, that she passed out.
New surveillance video could bring police one step closer to finding 11-month-old baby Lisa.
A mystery man spotted shortly after the young child disappears from her crib.
He had the baby in his arms, and he had the baby's head kind of like this. So we just kind of seen the baby's arm, and then the leg was down here.
I think the simple fact that you have 3 separate witnesses all saying something to the effect of they saw someone carrying a child is compelling.
The question is, was this an abduction with the parents completely uninvolved, or is the abductor somehow associated with the parents and we're all covering for each other?
Baby Lisa has been missing for 5 weeks, 36 days. Could police already be throwing in the towel? Are they giving up? Here's a statement from the Clay County Prosecutor's Office. Take a listen. There's no case and nothing has been presented to us. If it gets solved, it'll get solved years from now. At this point, nothing has been presented to our office. Nothing? There's no case? Come on, we have at least 3 witnesses. 3 witnesses who saw a man carrying a half-naked baby around the neighborhood in the middle of the night. We even have gas station surveillance video that captured someone walking that route in the wee hours of the morning. But there's no case? We know 3 cell phones were taken from baby Lisa's home. And there was a 50-second phone call from one of those stolen phones that night. But there's no case? There was also a dumpster fire mysteriously set on the night that baby Lisa went missing. But there's no case? A cadaver dog hit on human remains on the floor of baby Lisa mom's bedroom. The front window appeared to be tampered with. But there's no case? Plus, new tonight, more startling pieces to the puzzle. Someone else was on the porch that night while Deborah Bradley and a neighbor were getting drunk on that box of wine. And this new neighbor is throwing a whole new wrench into the timeline. Plus, we now know who answered the call from baby Lisa mom's stolen cell phone. Is there really no case here? Our own experts are on the ground digging. We'll break down the case this entire hour. Joining me tonight from Kansas City, Jim Spellman, reporter for our sister network, CNN. Kelly Sandin, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, and Pat Brown, a criminal profiler. Welcome to you all. Jim, let me begin with you. Let's start with this new witness that you've uncovered here that was on the porch with baby Lisa's mom and her neighbor while they're drinking their box of wine.
Yeah, now this whole time, Vinny, we've thought that it was just Deborah Bradley and her next-door neighbor sitting there drinking that night out on the stoop the night baby Lisa disappeared. We now know that there was a third person there for a good chunk of that evening. His name is Shane Beagley. He lives 2 doors down. He had just moved into the neighborhood, and it was the first night he met these 2 women. He tells us that he went out front of his house for a smoke. They called him over, and he says he wasn't drinking, but he went and spent about an hour and a half with them, leaving sometime around 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock that night. He says he didn't see baby Lisa, didn't see anything strange. He goes home. Later, he comes out around 10:30. At this point, Deborah is no longer there. The next-door neighbor is on her own stoop. They chat a little bit, and he goes inside. This whole time, we thought it was just the 2 of them, and now we know that there was a third person there for at least an hour and a half, and he definitely changes the sort of tableau of that evening.
And this neighbor, Shane, never saw baby Lisa the entire time?
never saw baby Lisa, says that Deborah Bradley never went in to check on her or anything while he was out there.
All right, I got to do this because let's take a look at our original timeline here, folks. And this is the first one that we dealt with in this case. The original timeline begins at 4:51 p.m. This is when Deborah buys the wine with her brother. 6:40 p.m., she puts baby Lisa in the crib. And at 4 a.m., Dad comes home and reports baby Lisa missing. That's the original one. Now, let's insert this new information into a new timeline. We now add 7 o'clock to 7:30. Shane, this new neighbor, smokes with Deborah and the other neighbor who were drinking that box of wine. Then 8 o'clock or 8:30, Megan Wright gets a call from this apparently stolen cell phone. And then 8:30 to 9 o'clock, Shane, this new neighbor, leaves. 10:30 p.m., Shane sees the neighbor at the neighbor's home, but does not see Deborah on her porch. And remember, 10:30 p.m. is Deborah originally told police that she last saw baby Lisa. Oh my! And here's another question with this neighbor, Shane. Has he spoken to police? Has he been questioned?
He says he's been questioned repeatedly by numerous agencies, even the Secret Service, he says. Says they swabbed the inside of his mouth for DNA, and they searched his home very early in the investigation was the search. And the police won't comment on him to us one way or the other, but he says he's gone through all this and he has nothing to hide. But this was the first time anybody was able to sort of track him down and chat with him. Very illuminating to just picture this, and it brings up to me a lot of questions about what else don't we know about what happened that night. You know, we get such fragments from the family that it's really hard to get an entire picture of that evening, Vinny.
Absolutely, but here's the thing, Kelly, saying, and prosecutors, commenting on the case, saying there's no case here. There's no case. There seem to be so many pieces, and I understand we're not getting every piece that's out there. It seems to me there is an opportunity here, and there should be maybe an opportunity for a little more optimism in solving this thing.
Well, I agree with you about definitely more optimism. It seems like you're right. They may have thrown in the towel. Saying it's going to be years doesn't make sense. There's definitely some credibility to 3 people saying they saw a man carrying a half-naked or half-dressed baby in the middle of the night. And there's also the possibility of either child endangerment charges or at least, at a minimum, child neglect against mom. Based on the fact that she was drinking, she's not sure if she checked in on the daughter. Everyone's saying she was sitting outside for an extended period of time from the time she put baby Lisa in the crib until then. Is that enough? Does that rise to the level? Possibly, and that would then put some pressure on her to maybe start talking a little bit more. Maybe other people would come forward.
Pat Brown, a criminal profiler, CEO of Pat Brown and founder of Sexual Homicide Exchange. Pat, how about this? You've got the spokesperson for prosecutors saying there's no case. There's no case. Mike, there's so many people walking around that neighborhood. There's so many things that we've learned, spotting people with babies, cadaver dogs hitting. I can't believe that they'd even be close to throwing in the towel on this one.
Oh, I don't think they're throwing in the towel. I think there's some very interesting language here. They're not saying there's no suspect. They're saying there's no case. In other words, we don't have a case with enough evidence to go forward to prosecution. It'll probably take years. Take a look at the Haley Cummings case. Are there no suspects? Yes, there are suspects. Most of them are in prison. And they don't have enough evidence because they can't find Haley's body to go to court. I think they're saying the same thing here. Yes, we've got a focus. We've got a cadaver dog has hit on that baby being dead in there, but we don't have a body and we don't have a way to prove anything yet. So it may take years. We don't yet have a case.
You know, a great way to stay on top of this story is to follow me on Twitter. The address is @VinnyPolitan. Important breaks in the story, I'll tweet them out and you'll know about them. Maybe even before we get on the air here on HLN Special Report. All right, much more to this case. Has another piece to this puzzle been solved? The neighbor that's just come forward with shocking new information.
So that was Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin. They just returned here to their home on North Lister. They had been staying a few miles away with some relatives' house. They parked in the back and they loaded their vehicle up with a few things and took off. As usual, they weren't interested in talking to the press. That night that baby Lisa went missing, you received a phone call? Tell me about that.
I didn't have my phone at the time, but apparently there was a 50-second phone call made from one of the family's phones to my cell phone. About 50 seconds in length. I don't know what was said or who called or who answered my phone.
Do you remember her? That's Megan Wright, and she said she got a call from one of Deborah Bradley's, baby Lisa's mom, stolen phones. That was the night before baby Lisa was reported missing. It's another piece to this puzzle. Who called Megan Wright that night and why? Now, Megan always said she had no idea who called. She didn't answer it and didn't know who did. But now we have some answers. She spoke to our own Jim Spellman. Take a listen.
Megan, you now think you know who had your phone that night. Tell us what happened.
From talking with everybody that was in the house, found out that a guy named Dane supposedly had my phone all of Monday and Tuesday night, the 3rd and the 4th of October, to the point where nobody else could have used my phone just because he had so many incoming text messages and phone calls.
To your knowledge, have the police found this Dane and talked to him?
I don't know if they found him, but he was questioned here one day on one of the 2nd or 3rd visits that the police had to the house.
Now, you mentioned that he just sort of was staying here for a week or so.
Just staying here for about a week. Apparently, he was waiting for an apartment with a friend just for the lease to start. And he left about a week and a half after the police first made contact with me. I don't know if it had anything to do with the case or if he got the apartment or what the deal was, but I haven't seen him since.
Has he been back around since?
I haven't heard or seen from him.
Did you tell me that he also was getting a lot of other text messages that night?
That's what I was told, yes, from somebody who was upstairs all night, which is where he was at. I was downstairs to the point where a friend of mine couldn't use my phone to send an email because there were so many incoming messages that interrupted the internet access on my phone.
Is the cell phone mystery solved? Well, in part. Now there's someone named Dane who had the phone and knows, and reportedly must know, who called from baby Lisa's mom's cell phone. My goodness, what does that mean? Plus, here's the other question that we still have now. What about all those other witnesses, right? So many sightings. The woman, Lisa, who saw a man with a baby at 12:15 in the morning. And Mike Thompson, the motorcycle guy who saw a man with a baby at 4 a.m. You've got witnesses that see people with babies, and there's no case, according to the spokesperson for prosecutors. And I'm wondering, are they just completely discounting those witnesses? What does this cell phone development mean? Jim, can you clear this up for me? Are police telling us that they just don't believe the motorcycle man? They don't believe the neighbor, Lisa, that there is no man with a baby walking in the middle of the night?
They don't go that far, Vinny. They never tell us absolutely yes or no on any of these things. And I really believe that they do have done all their work around
Let
these
me interrupt
things,
you for 1 second, Jim, because
aren't prepared to go any further.
Let me interrupt you for one second, because there's one more fact here, because the motorcycle man has positively identified someone, right, as the person with the baby, and we know who that person is.
Yes, and I've spoken with this person multiple times, and they deny it, and that person has spoken to the police extensively. We're not going to name who that person is.
Right.
But he's come forward and picked out a person by name, somebody in the neighborhood.
And he's not from, the motorcycle guy's not from that neighborhood, right?
He lives about 90 miles an hour, 90 miles away. He's only up here because he works a night shift at a Ford plant about 4 miles from here.
Okay. Let me ask you, Pat Brown, why would police not believe this motorcycle guy if he positively identifies the person, and that person is from the neighborhood of baby Lisa, as being the man with the baby? Is that not huge evidence, or do they just not believe this guy?
Well, it all depends. Now, let's say this guy, you bring the guy in and he's giving a story and you see something's a little fishy in that story. Let's say you present him with a photo lineup, 6 guys, and you say, do you see the guy there? Now, let's assume he could be just lucky, first of all. He could just simply go, it was him. It could just be luck that was somebody in the neighborhood. It's also possible that that guy that they put in that lineup from the neighborhood is solidly alibied, so it is absolutely impossible for him to have done it, and this guy picks him, and they're like, come on now. We know the guy's solidly alibied, so we know you're full of crap. So we don't know what the interview contained.
Sure. Let's check with Jim, though, Pat. Let's check with Jim. Did you check his alibi?
He does at the time, I don't want to go into too much detail here and possibly reveal this person's identity at this point, but
this is where you can answer it, Jim. Jim, very easily, Jim.
He does not have an alibi. He does not have an alibi at that time.
Okay, he doesn't have an alibi at that time. All right, Kelly Sandin, my goodness, you've got a witness, and maybe he's not telling the truth. I don't know. But, you know, a witness who sees a man with a baby 4 o'clock in the morning picks the guy out, and they have no case. And I'm confused. I'm confused here.
Well, maybe they're just trying not to rush to judgment. I think part of what Pat said is true, that you need to look, and maybe the other witnesses didn't identify the same man as someone holding the baby. Maybe they're waiting for a search warrant to get more concrete evidence. Maybe they're waiting for a crack in his story. I'm not sure, because I agree with you. It seems like there's a lot of loose ends. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and nobody's working that hard to get to those answers. So it's distressing when they say there's no case and it's 5 weeks. Is this baby still alive, or does that cadaver hit mean that was the baby and someone disposed of the body? With the fire that you talked about, with the video surveillance on the convenience store nearby, how does all of this add up? I'm not sure, but I think they should definitely be putting pressure on these people that have been implicated to a certain degree to see if they can find a resolution.
Jim Spellman, real quickly, did the other witness positively identify the same person as being the man with the baby?
We're not certain that first witness was ever shown pictures of the man the second witness identified. We just don't know.
Gotcha. All right, folks. Have you seen baby Lisa? My goodness. The search continues tonight. 816-474-TIPS is the phone number. 816-474-TIPS.
Is it true that you're getting paid to avoid local reporters?
Not at all.
Then why won't you talk to us?
Because we're grieving.
You just disappeared.
Mom, Deborah Bradley, was potentially confronted with some burnt clothes in one of her interrogations.
He was wearing like a dark colored pants and what we believe was a t-shirt.
This man walked into this yard right here. Walked through this backyard, and you come to the fence at the back of the yard, and you're looking straight at a dumpster.
A dumpster mysteriously set on fire the night that baby Lisa vanished, and it's so close to baby Lisa's neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, and her home. Let's take a look at the map again, because this is significant, folks. As you take a look at this map, obviously you can see where baby Lisa's home is. It's right there. And again, you just follow the path. It's so close to the dumpster fire. But what's also significant here is this road. This is a main road here. This is at North Brighton. And there's several things along North Brighton. The gas station. This is where the surveillance video was. That surveillance video had the person on tape going in this direction towards that witness sighting by the motorcycle man, which is right over here at 4 a.m. But there's something else I want you to take a look at up here at the top of the map. I'm calling it the flop house. This is where Megan Wright is living, and that's where the cell phone that was taken from baby Lisa's home, called a cell phone. It belonged to Megan Wright. She lives in this house with a whole bunch of people. She did not have the cell phone that night. She now says that a man who was staying in that house for a short while, his name is Dane, he had the cell phone. And all this is all along that same corridor, North Brighton. And this whole area you're talking about is all within about 3 miles of each other. So it's not so widely spread out. It's all in the area. And in some ways, it's like pieces of a puzzle that investigators are trying to put together here. Pat Brown, I think that dumpster fire is so significant. And I don't know what they recovered there, but they told baby Lisa's mom that they recovered some burnt clothes in that dumpster fire. It's in the middle of the night. I think it's not a coincidence. I think it's absolutely related to whatever happened at baby Lisa's home.
Well, it's a good thing to believe, Vinny, but the problem is we don't actually know. And I've seen some cases where you have those bizarre coincidences, and that's why the police can't just say, oh, that's absolutely connected. They have to put all those pieces together. And one thing I want to point out, well, two things. One is we don't have a crying baby anyplace. This is supposedly a chilled baby. The poor little thing is being carried about by some stranger after being ripped out of the bed, carried off in some manner, and is walking down the street with a mostly naked baby in cold weather, and that baby is dozing. The baby's not screaming bloody murder. Not at the first sighting, not at the second sighting. So that's an interesting little quirk. The other possible thing that's interesting is where this phone call was made to this flop house. You know, it is a little unbelievable that somebody over there just said, hey, let's go steal a baby tonight. And for some reason, they picked Bradley's house, went over to Deborah Bradley's house and decided to crawl in her window just at the night her husband was gone. So there has to be a connection. And that's what the police are sitting there trying to sort out, is all these connections, putting all those puzzle pieces together and finding out which ones are not even meaningful. And that's a difficult job.
You know, we've got a growing cast of characters in the search for baby Lisa. We've got relatives, neighbors, a mystery man who appears to be carrying a baby. Up next, we're going to help you sort it all out.
Please, please, please call the TIPS hotline if you know where she's at. And if you have her, please just take her somewhere safe. No questions asked. Just drop her off with somebody at a hospital, a church, the fire department, the police station, anywhere.
You know, it's been a month since little baby Lisa disappeared. So many people involved, so many family members, so many neighbors, so many eyewitnesses. It's all very confusing. We want to show you each one of their faces. And remember, one of these people knows what happened. One of these people knows the truth. One of these people can help bring baby Lisa home.
The only thing I can think of is, you know, maybe somebody wanted a baby and she... I hope that's what it is.
What do you want to tell that person other than dropping them off? I mean, what do you want to tell them about Lisa?
She's everything. She's our little girl. She's completed her family, and she means everything to my boys, and we need her home. I can't be without her.
Anybody that might have her, they can drop her off at any place safe, fire station or hospital or a church. Ask you to keep her in her thoughts and prayers and help her bring her home.
You see Deborah Bradley, Lisa's mother, and another man walk into this grocery store, which is about a mile or so away from this neighborhood.
He is the brother of Lisa's mom, Deborah Bradley. You may remember him from that surveillance video.
This brother was seen on surveillance camera tape with Deborah Bradley as she bought a box of wine and baby supplies the night that missing baby Lisa disappeared. The woman who lives next door to Deborah Bradley. This is the woman that Deborah Bradley was drinking with on her front stoop that night.
The two drank on the Irwin's front stoop while Lisa was asleep in her crib.
Deborah Bradley says she ended up passing out that night, the mom, after putting this little girl to bed.
This is 42-year-old John Tanko, better known as Jersey, a handyman who worked around the Northland neighborhood near the Irwin home.
We do know that Jersey went almost door to door throughout this neighborhood doing yard work, things like that for people. He mostly was on foot, sometimes on bicycle, so he stood out a lot. And also, like a lot of people on foot, he took a lot of shortcuts, including through backyards. Tell me about John Tanko.
He's an ex-boyfriend of mine. We dated for about 5 months.
That night that baby Lisa went missing, you received a phone call? Tell me about that.
It was, I didn't have my phone at the time, but apparently there was a 50-second phone call made from one of the family's phones to my cell phone. It's about 50 seconds in length. I don't know what was said or who called or who answered my phone, but that's what the police have been questioning me about. We have 8 people that live here and only one cell phone at the time, so it was pretty much community, whoever needed my phone.
Do you know Deborah Bradley?
No, I've never met her or anyone else in that family that I'm aware of.
So these police officers came and they searched your home and you were okay
Yeah,
with that?
Of course, yeah. They knocked on our door around 8 a.m., woke us up, and they said that there was a missing baby in the area, wanted to talk to us if we saw anything suspicious that night. There was a sprinkler that happened to be on in that yard that made it moist over here, whereas the rest of the ground was dry because there hadn't been any rain.
Now, this sprinkler tells these people were not home, right?
No.
Who was operating the sprinkler?
Their handyman that they had that the police were actually looking for in the area, Jersey.
My husband was standing right next to we had another vehicle out there, and he was standing at that vehicle, and he was looking down the street, and then all of a sudden he turned and he was looking at the gentleman because he was walking up that way. He was wearing like a dark colored pants and what we believe was a t-shirt, like a white t-shirt. And then he had the baby in his arms, and he had the baby's head kind of like this. So we just kind of seen the baby's arm, and then the leg was down here. And he was kind of just like, I don't know if he was trying to protect it from the cold, or if he just, he was just holding the baby.
You're a mom, so tell me, did it look like somebody that was accustomed to carrying a baby?
Yes, it did.
It did? Yes. And did it stick out to you that on this chilly evening in the 40s, that somebody had a baby himself wearing a t-shirt and the baby not clothed?
Yes, it was pretty odd.
And he was up here ways, and he turned to look at me, and I looked at him, and I could tell he had a baby with him. She had a t-shirt and either training pants or a diaper on. It was too cold for that. I thought he had a short sleeve shirt on, all dressed in white.
Describe him about how tall, what he looked like, that sort of thing.
Had a well-built body. I could see arms, he had t-shirt or whatever it was on. He was a well-built guy.
So what'd you think of it at the time?
I thought it was kind of stupid for a guy to be out here that late in the morning with a baby and dressed like that, no blanket, no coat.
Awful for you, Mark.
I'm terrified, but I'm trying to be helpful.
Someone knows what happened to baby Lisa. Let me bring in Jim Spellman. Jim, one of the key, I think, people in the neighborhood that day, the one that really sticks out to me, he's in custody on unrelated charges, Jersey John Tanko. And he creates a link to that cell phone, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was the boyfriend of Megan Wright until about 2 weeks before baby Lisa disappeared, which of course is shocking that this phone call was made to this area handyman. We know of no direct links between Deborah Bradley, Jeremy Irwin, anyone in that home, and Jersey, but he was a man who was in this neighborhood often. He did yard work and things like that for people, and we know that he cut through the backyard that leads from that 1215 sighting to that dumpster, and we can't connect him with that fire or anything like that directly, but in the mid-90s, he was convicted for arson in New Jersey and did about 5 years in prison for that. As you said, he's still in jail here. We're trying to get to him in jail. It's proving very difficult, but we saw him last week at a hearing, about a 90-second quick hearing on these unrelated charges. He could definitely hold a lot of valuable information about what was happening in the days ahead of that disappearance and even that very day.
Hey, Jim, and what do we know about when he was seen that day in the neighborhood and where he was and what he may have saw, what he may have noticed, or what people may have noticed him doing?
Well, one of the neighbors here, Mary, said that he was turning sprinklers on and off in this next-door neighbor's yard that day. They think that it was sometime between about 9:30 and 11 that night that he turned the sprinklers off. Earlier in the afternoon and around the 1 o'clock hour, another neighbor on that same street saw John Tanko, Jersey, walking away down the street and turning away from baby Lisa's house with a dog, the dog of the next-door neighbor, Mary. I know it's a little confusing, but this woman, Terry, says she saw him with this dog leaving around 1:30 in the afternoon. That's one definite sighting early that day that puts him in this neighborhood yards away from baby Lisa's house that very day.
Kelly Sain, and this is obviously someone that prosecutors want to talk to. They have spoken to him. I'm wondering if he somehow is the key, because there is some sort of connection between him and the cell phone from baby Lisa's home, because it's his ex-girlfriend's phone that is called from that cell phone. He's in the neighborhood. The house he works at backs up to that property where the dumpster fire was.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, he definitely seems like he's in the center of all of this, and he could answer some questions. Do we know what he's in the jail for unrelated charges? Do we know what that is? Is there any way they might make a deal with him in exchange for information or put pressure on him because he's already locked up?
Yeah, let me go to Jim on that, Jim. Wasn't there an outstanding warrant for Tanko?
He was in jail for burglary and tampering with an automobile, but he walked away from a halfway house, and we haven't been able to ascertain for certain whether he's actually held now on the original charges or escaped for walking away from this halfway house kind of jail facility.
All right, folks, if you want to stay on top of this story and everything else we follow at Special Report, follow me at Vinny Politan. All right, coming up more with this search for baby Lisa. It continues. Are we any closer? And unfortunately, I'm hearing word from the spokesperson for prosecutors saying that there's no case. There's no case. Well, there's a whole lot of evidence out there.
Hey, Mama. What are you doing?
For child endangerment, absolutely, or negligence or some sort of abuse for not checking on her child. But what does that get us? It doesn't solve the mystery. And as for the handyman, same thing. There's some.
We'll be back with
seems
more.
Like a linchpin.
Who are you talking to? Drink your baba. Change her. Put fresh clothes on her and get her ready for bed and give her her bottle, and I made sure her binky was in her crib in case she needed it.
Drink your baba.
She sleeps with her Barney, and she sleeps with her glowworm and her blanket, and that was it.
Oh, Mama.
The search for baby Lisa continues. Still no arrests. Still no hard evidence of what happened to this little girl. On the ground in Kansas City, joining us from baby Lisa's neighborhood, HLN law enforcement analyst Mike Brooks. Mike, from your perspective, where's the key that's going to unlock this mystery? So many clues from that neighborhood, so many people, so many strange things happening. What do you believe is the key to unlocking this mystery?
Vinny, I really think there is some link with Jersey and the phone calls and the sightings. What that link is, we're going to try to figure that out. Jim Spellman and I have been talking at great lengths about all the different characters in play here. And that dumpster fire, Vinny, there's something to that dumpster fire. And Vinny, you and I were talking about, where do you always start? You always start looking closest to the home, wooded areas. Vinny, there are so many wooded areas around here, one that connects to another, all up and down Brighton Avenue, all around here, Vinny. So we're going to be taking a close look at that. Jim Spellman and I. Jim's done a great job so far on this ground in this investigation, but we're going to try to see if we can put those links together.
Mike, are you surprised that with all these witnesses that saw this and saw that, were on the porch, not on the porch, surveillance video, eyewitness sightings, that we haven't, that investigators haven't been able to put it together yet?
I am, but I think they know more than what they're saying. I really do. And Vinny, when I look at this house, I look at this window and the amount of traffic you have here. And Jim and I have been talking about this. Something about that window, I'm not sure. You're looking at it from a distance, looking at it over the TV, but seeing it here in person, I got a lot of questions about that, too, about how someone may have gotten into this house.
The other part of it, Mike, is that someone had to have inside information, whether it was someone inside the house or inside that neighborhood, about the fact that baby Lisa's dad was not home that night, baby Lisa's mom was passed out drunk. You had to have that specific information.
And Vinny, there's always somebody looking out a window. I was driving around here right before I came to location, and there's people out walking, there's people out barbecuing, there's people out on their stoops, and you see Kansas City police driving around here now. But somebody had to see something, somebody knows something, Vinny, that they're not telling. What is this connection with Tanko, this Jersey guy? That's what we want to find out.
All right, Mike Brooks on the ground in Kansas City. Thanks so much, Jim Spellman, Kelly Sane, and Pat Brown. Thank you as well. Child sex abuse allegations rock one of the country's most respected colleges.